Do you know the difference between seals and sea lions? Newport, Oregon happens to have both, so you can spot the difference in real life. At Yaquina Head Lighthouse, you'll see harbor seals nap and raise pups, which, by the way, peak pup season is coming up in May. Or you can witness the loud and chaotic frat party made up of dozens and dozens of rowdy California sea lions on floats along the bayfront. And if you're just like, I don't care about seals, but you love seafood, Newport is the Dungeness crab capital of the world. Not to mention, it's just a lovely drive down along the coast. Plan your trip now before the crowds hit at discovernewport.com/citycast. That's discovernewport.com/citycast. Pivot Property Management is a small local commercial property company in downtown Portland that's deeply invested in the future of downtown Portland. They're focused on building community and long-term relationships with their tenants. They're hands-on, responsive, and actually have their main office downtown. So if you're a business owner, nonprofit, or entrepreneur looking for a space downtown, or a building owner who wants local community-minded management, check out Pivot at pivotportland.com. That's pivotportland.com. Let's make downtown what we want it to be. On yesterday's show, we chatted about ideas for bringing people back to our downtown and Central East Side districts. In that discussion, we referenced the role of a night mayor. They oversee decisions about how a city functions in the wee hours, which allows them to fully embrace operating 24/7. And in the nearly 20 American cities that have already instituted this position, the investment is paying off. So today on CityCast Portland, we're revisiting a conversation I had with Philadelphia's nighttime economy director, Raheem Manning, about how he keeps Philly running all night long and whether Portland could benefit from having its own mayor of the night. It's Wednesday, February 18th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. So Philly created the position of nighttime economy director back in 2022, right? And you're the first to hold that job.
I am. I was appointed in July of 2022. And I am the first director of nighttime economy.
Yeah.
Or as a lot of people call me, the nighttime mayor for the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's how I will be referring to you, the night mayor. It's so much more fun than nighttime economy director. I mean, come on, it's a nightmare. But before that, you were the co-chair of the city's Arts and Culture Task Force. Like, what made you want to make that jump to become, the representative of the Philly nightlife?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I own a company called The Weekender Experiences. It's a travel, entertainment, and events management company, and it supports a lot of artists and the kind of creative economy. And during the pandemic, when, we were sheltered in place, Philly's mayor at the time, like a lot of mayors across the country, had zeroed out the art and culture budget, to make budget shortfalls because of lack of taxes, things of that stuff to make the budget balance. When he did that, of course, it enraged a lot of the artists. They're like, hey, we're still doing programming and virtual things, and we need these things more than ever. And so it forced city council to have a public meeting, to listen to the artists, listen to the creative economy, and talk about how the city council could better support as they were making like COVID policies. On that call, I asked a specific question to a council member who talked about grants and all these grants that were going out to help businesses and, artists are businesses. And so have you guys applied for the grants? And, at the time I have a completely virtual business. Right. And I just raised my hand and I said, hey, that's great. All your grants had this one qualification at the end of it. It had to be a brick and mortar location located within the city of Philadelphia's boundaries. And they were taken aback and they kind of just looked at it and was like, hey, we didn't think about that. And so that forced them, along with some of the other feedback they got, to create the Art and Culture Task Force. We were looking at how the city could better come out of the pandemic supporting arts, culture, and nightlife. And then doing that research to provide the city with a report, I learned about this position called the nighttime mayor, or the night mayor, that started in Europe and it was spreading through the U.S. at the time. New York had a night mayor, D.C. had one, Austin. And I met with them and they shared with me that they were the shepherds of art and culture and nightlife in their city. And they were the liaison for the community to talk to the mayor. And so I wrote a proposal and submitted that proposal to city council to create the position and then advocated for.
You made your own job.
Made my own job, right? I guess I said that with a long way to say.
I
I
love
created the
it.
position and city council adopted it and I got appointed to it.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, there goes my next question, which was I was like, were you crowned knight mayor or was it a voting process? But you crowned yourself. Did you give yourself a sash?
No, I did not. I should have,
Okay.
right? Give myself a
I
sash
would
and
love that.
maybe some more budget in the beginning, but I think it was just important to have the role as
Hmm.
a liaison to represent just such a dynamic part of any city's economy.
Necessary for sure.
But cities are made to operate from 9 to 5. They weren't really looking at the importance of the 5 to 9. And so now,
Right.
cities around the world are investing in their nighttime economy as an economic driver and developer for the city.
Yeah. And, we're speaking with you because we are considering options for Portland. Obviously, as a podcaster, I don't really have the ear of the city. It's not like it's me who decides this, but just, a
Yeah.
conversation like, do we need this? Because I'm just wondering, like, did Philly already have like a thriving night scene beforehand, or has there been like a noted difference in the nightlife since your role went into effect a few years ago?
Yeah, two parts to answer to that. Yes, there was a thriving nightlife
Mhm.
scene in the city. Philly is a large city, a city of culture and music and arts and venues. And, as most cities, there's going to be a nightlife because people want to convene and have fun, do things outside of just working.
Mhm.
But there was never anyone within government that directly represented the interests of the nighttime economy. And that in itself has made a difference because we could talk about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish, like updating the definition of a nightclub on our, legal definition of it, launching programs and giving out grants. But the main thing that we do a lot is provide technical assistance. As a nighttime business, there's certain things that you deal with that, a lot of the daytime people who work in cities won't understand.
Mhm.
And, a lot of the frustration is explaining that over and over again to different city departments
Right.
so that you can get the right permits or what you need or what it is. And so with me and my team, which is in our commerce department, we're able to be the liaison, the one-stop shop where you can come and say, hey, Raheem, I'm working on this and can you point me in the right direction? What do I need to do? That never happened before. And then I think the
Mhm.
other part is like the preservation and protection, like looking at this part of the economy as something that should exist
Right.
because we also liaison between residents and nighttime venues or noise complaints. And so before our role existed, there was very little recourse for businesses to kind of fight back. Yeah, residents could complain a business out of existence. But now, if there's a resident complaining about noise with a business can reach out to myself or my team, and then we mitigate and we talk about solution-based problem solving, right? That isn't just resident right, business wrong.
Yeah, we've been hitting that in Portland because I don't know how it is in Philly, but the way city ordinances are enforced here is very complaint driven.
Yep.
So like if one person like literally shut down a restaurant here recently, it reversed a lot of things because people were just like, one person can do that?
Yeah.
And then of course it's like, well, which restaurants are getting shut down? Oh, the ones that aren't standard white American fare? Interesting.
Now,
And-
now you're talking.
Yeah, and I mean, I could tell you how embarrassing some of the sound complaints have happened, right down to like the children at that school are too loud, and it's like the kids playing in the school
yard?
Yeah, anyhow. But
Yeah,
I want,
listen.
yeah, go ahead.
I think you touch on a great point. Municipal processes or city processes are often complaint driven just because cities are big and sprawling and it's hard to have someone everywhere,
Mhm.
which causes particular issue when the complaints aren't viewed at merit or evaluated because they're systems, right? We have 311, right? When you want to launch a complaint, you can call 311 or you can call 911. Well, if one person calls 100 times or if 100 people call one time, it all registers as the same. And we have to look at that as different. So we were seeing that.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, it's only been like a handful of years that you've had this position, but has there been like a number that you are able to point to that says, "Hey, local business revenue has increased because of our attention to this area," or like tourism has jumped because of our attention? Like, is it driving more business?
Yeah, so, this is a new way of governing in a lot of cities. I'm the first in my city. Most of my counterparts in the US are their first. Maybe some cities are on their second.
Mm-hmm.
So what we just commissioned here in the city of Philadelphia was an economic impact study to get baseline numbers, right? Because I can
Mhm.
say it feels bigger outside. We have more
Yeah.
tourists, but like, is that converting to dollars and cents
Right.
and jobs? So our economic impact study is just wrapping up now and will be released later this month or early next month. And we were able to quantify what the nighttime economy contributed to Philly's entire economic impact. And it is substantial. It's very substantial number for the nighttime economy, which includes all businesses that operate in activity from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It is direct impact in the city of Philadelphia, $26.1 billion. And
Dang.
overall impact, which includes the direct impact in the city and then the spillover impact into the rest of the region, is $30 billion per year
Wow.
annually.
Yeah.
But before then, we've never looked at our nighttime economy
Mm.
as an industry. Yes, we looked at maybe tourism. Yes, we looked at maybe hospitality in a vacuum, or we looked at hotels in a vacuum, but we didn't look at this as a whole ecosystem that you have to treat like a sector and support and grow. And
Wow.
so, one, those numbers help me convince our legislators who control the purse for investment. Like, hey, this is a sector that can grow and we can invest and it can bring in more revenue, as it already does a big part of it. But then also, again, like you said, looking at the measurable impact of the work that we're doing.
Wow. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. When we return, what a night mayor does all day or night. The South by Southwest Innovation Conference takes over Austin, Texas from March 12th through the 18th. And for that one electric week, the city becomes a playground for boundary-pushing ideas, world-class networking, and emerging technology. So it makes sense electric auto pioneer Rivian is this year's headlining sponsor. This is your chance to gain real access to new ideas, people, and opportunities that don't happen anywhere else, which also includes access to the best breakfast tacos and barbecue this world has to offer. And I know they're not an official part of the festival, but it's definitely a perk. Expect the unexpected at South by Southwest. It's an experience built on connection and the thrill of seeing the future first, as well as drinking margaritas before noon without judgment. Trust me, nobody cares. And you can get a 10% discount on your innovation badge when you use our code CityCast10 at southbysouthwest.com/Portland. That's SXSW.com/Portland. Terms do apply. Start planning your adventure today. What's a typical work day for you, or work night? I mean, when are your hours? When are your work hours?
Yeah, one of the things I always hear people like, oh, like the nightmare, that's such an awesome title. I say, yeah, until I have meetings at 12 a.m. and meetings at 8 a.m. and sometimes on the corresponding days, all right?
Yeah.
My typical day, it varies based on the needs of businesses. However, I spend most of my daytime speaking with interdepartmental partners, right? Talking with the police department zoning, or with our policymakers, or with the mayor's office, to talk about what needs to be done to create an easier environment to do business if you operate after 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then at night, I am out meeting with the businesses, and I am out talking to the restaurant owners or the club owners or the venue owners. I am out understanding residents when they say, hey, listen, this business is bothering my quality of life. Well, I don't just not take their word for it or take their word for it. I go listen, I go see, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does this look like? What is the operation? And I think a lot of times with going out there, we discover some things that residents are bothered by are not always directly the business it can control,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have residents complain about cars, right? Like if you have a venue that's letting out or opening up and cars are parking 3 blocks away, a resident is complaining. Well, that's something that the city, and we can look at a little better how we manage parking and cars and driving and egress for that point. And if we don't go out at night, we don't understand those complaints. And then I go back in during the day and talk to, our partners or our city council, whoever's controlling there, and say, I think a solution for this area that will both help this business grow and exist and residents feel comfortable about their neighborhood is doing X, Y, and Z.
What would be the last emergency you had to put out? Like the last big emergency that you had to, you and your team
big
had to
emergency.
Yeah.
I have one that I'm working on now that I just got an email about this week where, another noise complaint that had come through to a business. But they're just getting going, right? Like they kind of got the groove. It's a restaurant. They do a little lounge stuff. And so that's an immediate me go out because, again, I want to put some calming to the business. Like, hey, we're here to help you. Let's work through this and let's see what's going on. I think some of the other kind of deeper, darker stuff that we deal with is when you have other, I guess, motives behind targeting a business,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's racially motivated or sometimes it's ageist motivated, where, we don't want these young people in our neighborhood or, in the end, those become immediate issues because it takes so much sensitivity to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just had one where, I definitely had to jump in because the business felt it was being targeted by it because of who it served, right? Not because they were, loud or rowdy or affecting people's quality of life, but that just this neighbors did not like who they saw coming in and out of the business and chose to continue to complain. And so I have to jump into those. But I think those are some of the big issues because those can get very publicized and people, take sides. And then, it just goes beyond whether or not we can make sure a business in a resident to area exists.
Right. That sounds like complaints. You're that suggestion box. Hey, have you ever been to Portland?
I have not. I
Okay.
have not. And I've been over 200 cities worldwide.
Okay.
It's definitely on my list. I actually want to go to Crater Lake.
That's so funny. So Crater Lake is nowhere near Portland, but it's
in
in
Oregon,
Oregon.
right?
It's in Oregon. Hey, it's in Oregon.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. An aside, if you're going to Crater Lake, bring some bug spray because there are some flies there. They call them midge flies, like a real cute name, but they're like mosquitoes like this big
Oh, wow.
that like will go through your like jeans.
Yeah.
So just a heads up on that. Anyhow, the reason I bring up Portland is because, we're a smaller city and we're not as populous as Philly. I think your city's probably like twice the population of ours.
Okay.
But again, we're just trying to see if like, could we benefit from a nighttime mayor? Because I gotta be honest, our nightlife is a little sad. Most restaurants close like at 9. Some neighborhood bars are calling it quits at 10 p.m., which isn't unusual. And our downtown didn't fully recover from the COVID lull. I mean, like downtown has a few other issues. It's not just that people, aren't out there partying. But like, we're trying to figure out like what to do with downtown. And it's like, it would be such a great place we have young people, at one point, like, at one point.
Nike out there, a lot of people
Yes.
coming out there to work. I've never heard anything bad about Portland.
Oh, really?
Listen, I've never heard anything bad about Portland. I have a friend or two that works for Nike that lives out there. So
We hear it so much. So that's nice to hear. That's good to hear.
listen, sometimes your toughest critics are the ones that live in your city.
That's true.
But I think to answer your question on whether you guys need a nightmare or someone focused on, supporting your nighttime economy, the answer is yes. City size doesn't matter. You guys have people who want to do things more than just work. And you have to look at it in a couple ways, right? Even with some of the problems that you may be facing, and a lot of cities are facing, like downtown recovery post-pandemic in a remote work environment. A lot of cities immediately want to jump to conversions to residential, right? But if you're bringing residents into downtown, what are they going to do? Where are they going to eat? Where are they going to entertain themselves? Where are they going to go out?
Mhm.
And so you have to look at adaptive reuses. Like all those office buildings don't need to turn into apartments. Some can turn into bowling alleys and entertainment venues and, the club on the 20th floor of the high rise, right?
Mhm.
Looking at that because you have to look at, adaptive reuse when it comes to filling the space because you can't fill it all residential if you don't have an attraction to bring it in. I think the other part is the entertainment, the draw, the nightlife, the restaurant scene is a major, major way to attract and retain talent. You hear probably a lot about live, work, play. That's how, our residential places are being built. That's how our cities are now being built where you can live, work, play in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
Those are the things that you can look at when you're revamping a downtown. And having someone who speaks to the nighttime economy, who understands what's going on and what is needed by your restaurants and why your entertainment, to bring that into government, into city planning, and into urban designing, sets your city up for success. When you create an environment where businesses feel supported, it sprouts more businesses. If you get a restaurant that does well, other people like, okay, this is a place for you to open a restaurant. You get a venue that does well, and it picks up. But if you're not managing it actively and you're making policies, but not looking at how they affect the after 5 environment and not adding access to city services, then you're going to put yourself behind. All cities are competing to be globally competitive 24-hour cities these days.
Mhm.
So again, to answer your question, yes, you guys can definitely use a director of nighttime economy or a nighttime mayor or someone within city government dedicated to supporting the after 5 economy and making sure that the city is intentional about what it's doing there.
Yeah, I think what is going on right now with Portland is growing pains in a sense,
Yeah.
where we still consider ourselves a little town, but then we have big city things happening, but we don't have the infrastructure for these big city things to happen. And so what ends up happening is like, well, we need to shut more stuff down, So for example, we've been dealing with Live Nation looking to open up a venue in town, which a lot of people are just like, hooray, now Beyonce can come, because like
Yeah.
we have to go to Seattle, like we don't have a venue that's big enough for larger artists. That would be so cool. But then all of the smaller venues are just like, oh no, because now that Live Nation is in here, they have like a very well-known way of operating business where they're
Yeah.
squashing little venues. Is that something you have to deal with? I'm assuming Philly has Live Nation already.
Yes, we have Live Nation.
Yeah. You're like,
most cities-
yes,
yeah,
we're a
yeah,
city.
No, I don't see. There's several
No.
Live Nation run and
Yeah.
operated venues here. And I think What we do in the city is when we talk with other organizations that are able to better translate what the needs are, right? So we partner with like NEVA, which is the National Independent Venue Association,
Mm.
and we listen to them, right? What do you need that is different? Live Nation is a certain size. They don't operate super small venues like that, usually medium to larger venues. So what can we put in place policy-wise that protects and preserves our live music independently owned venues? And some of the stuff we're looking at even now is like, how do we look at taxes when it comes to that, right? We have an
Hmm.
amusement tax that, it's put on venues and live entertainment. And, most of that money that we get from the amusement tax in the city comes from our stadiums and the Live Nation venues because they're big and they're huge. And, a couple extra cents per ticket doesn't bother them as much. But when you're a 500 seat venue or a 1,000 seat or standing venue, then those things make a difference. So can we waive the tax for the smaller venues to give it a fair and even playing ground?
Ah.
But it's very important because if you do not have small independent venues, you will never get a new Beyonce
Hmm.
because no one starts off at the Live Nation venue. No one starts off at the stadium, right? So they have to
Hmm.
start off at smaller venues. And that's where you discover them and fall in love with new music. But if you don't have the infrastructure of the smaller independently owned venues, then you will hurt your whole entire ecosystem of creating experiences for people.
Wow. I've never heard of NEVA or National Independent Venue Association. I'm going to have to look that up. For all I know, they're already involved in the city somehow, but I've never heard of it.
I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, they're really well organized in getting into cities of all sizes. They work with my counterparts in all the cities across the U.S. We meet regularly to talk about what we can do to continue to protect those cultural venues that have been there in Portland forever.
Hmm.
Just because a Live Nation venue is opening up, it should not threaten those cultural institutions that are staples.
Right. Well, Raheem, thank you so much for fitting us into your schedule. I'm glad this wasn't like a 9 a.m. interview for you. So this worked.
Listen, no worries, no worries. I've done those before too. So
Uh, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and also your insight into this. Honestly, like we're ready to give you the job if you want it. Like if you, I have no power. I don't have a budget.
listen, I am born and raised in West Philadelphia. And, again, I love the work I do. And I do travel to different cities and help them out. And
Hmm.
but my place right now is in the city of Philadelphia and making sure that we become a 24-hour globally competitive hub for art, culture, nightlife, entertainment, and tourism. And so I'll be here for the foreseeable future, making sure that we continue to grow and support our nighttime economy. But anything I can do to help Portland, please feel free to reach out.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Raheem.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, share it with a friend or rate and leave us a good review. It really helps us out. And don't forget, you can support this show and get some great perks by becoming a CityCast neighbor. Just visit membership.citycast.fm for all the details. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you with Slims.